22-year-old man named Timothy Leaks is reportedly facing felony murder charges in connection with the death of King Von. Police say the rapper was shot after an argument broke out between two groups of men in the parking lot of a lounge in Atlanta.
I just interviewed Trap Lord Ross, and he was talking about how a bunch of DMs got leaked, like on Reddit, between King Von and K.I.
Man, we was trying to oop his stupid ass, man.
You know what I'm talking about, though?
Yeah. Y'all can't pay attention to what was going on. He was trying to get her to come so they can kill her, and we was trying to get him to come so we can kill him. Stupid ass.
King Von, born David Bennett, was a rapper who was shot and killed in Atlanta in 2020. He was 26 years old at the time. Von was a rising star in the rap world, and his death was a significant loss to the music industry. But the big question remains, what really happened? You're about to find out. King Von was shot and killed outside of a nightclub in Atlanta by a man identified as Quando Rondo and his associates. The shooting was the result of an ongoing feud between the two rappers. King Von was shot multiple times in the chest and died at the scene. A fight in the parking lot of the Monaco Hookah Lounge on Trinity Avenue in the city sparked a shootout between two groups, according to police. In a statement provided to the media at the time of the incident, the Atlanta Police Department says that King Von was shot and killed during this morning's shooting, and we are seeing rumors being spread indicating he was shot and killed by APD officers. At this time, our investigators believe Mr. Bennett was shot during the initial shootout between the two groups of males prior to police responding and attempting to stop the shooting. Additionally, Mr. Bennett was not located at the scene but arrived at a hospital shortly after the shooting via private vehicle. The investigation into this incident remains open and very active. Von's death reverberated quickly, first starting as a rumor on Twitter before being confirmed by sources close to the rapper. The hitmaker was born in the Parkway Gardens neighborhood of Chicago in 1994. And though he retreated to Atlanta to find peace and escape his hometown, his trouble with the law never truly escaped him. Many of his most popular songs paid tribute to Chicago. He was best known as a chronicler of street life, building narratives of tense nights on the streets and his desire to escape the gangster's mentality. Von existed in the post-drill landscape of Chicago rap, indebted to first-generation stars like G Herbo, Chief Keef, and King Louie, but intent on carving his own stylistic aesthetics into the genre. His songs are narrative, with a dead-eye nihilism softened by the humor and empathy brought to his rhymes. One of his biggest hits, 2020's Took Her to the O, from the album Levon James he released back in March, finds Von narrating a night on the town with a girl, constantly having to thwart haters, rival gang members, and those jealous of his stardom. I bust a U, pulled up to her spot, she lived by the park. It's getting dark, my Glock on my lap, I'm just thinking smart. Few rappers are able to make songs that bring relatability to the stress, trauma, and pain that comes with growing up in inner-city Chicago, a target of police and neighborhood rulers alike. But Von had found a way out thanks to his rap success. He'd occasionally go back to his Parkway Gardens neighborhood in Chicago with wads of cash and give them to families and kids in need. Growing up, Von was allegedly a member of the Black Disciples, or BD's street gang, and was given the nickname Grandson because, when I was in jail, I reminded people of King David. King David refers to David Barksdale, the founder of the Black Disciples. He explained that in jail, people said he reminded them of the gang leader and how he handled himself in the streets. He also mentioned that people told him they shared a similar demeanor as well. The rapper had a lengthy criminal history and had many run-ins with the law starting at an early age. He went to jail for the first time at only 16 and was arrested for unlawful possession of a firearm 2 years later. He also is alleged to have put in a lot of work for the gang and is rumored to have killed 5 people. On April 11, 2014, 17-year-old Gakira K.I. Barnes, an alleged member of the GDs, and 2 other people she was standing with were killed by an unknown man wearing a gray hoodie and blue jeans. Von would later be questioned for her death, but was never charged. It would later be revealed by police that witnesses stated Von was the shooter, but apparently they did not have enough evidence to charge him with her death. Barnes was apparently always a good student in school, but grew up around gang violence. She would mock her rivals on social media and began to grow a following for it. After her brother, Tyquin Tyler, was killed back in 2012, she apparently became ruthless and sought revenge for his death. She was allegedly responsible for multiple deaths and was in over 20 different shootings, though her mother later said that when she asked Akira about the rumors she was hearing about her daughter, she denied them. On July 24, 2014, Von and his friend Big Mike were at a house party where they ran into a rival gang member named Malcolm Stuckey. Stuckey was a member of the Gangster Disciples, or GDs, a gang notorious for its violent history with the rival BDs. Stuckey and another man were allegedly giving rude looks in Von's direction, and Von was not having the disrespect. He left the party with Big Mike and allegedly grabbed a .40 Smith & Wesson and returned to the party, shooting at Stuckey and the other man who was standing outside, killing Stuckey and wounding the other man. Big Mike agreed to testify against Von and gave a statement to the police explaining that he and Von allegedly hopped out of the car and chased them down. Mike apparently shot one of the men in the foot, and Von reportedly hit the other in the face, breaking his jaw. Big Mike changed his mind and decided not to testify in court, and other witnesses didn't show up. Ultimately, Mike was sentenced to 28 years for aggravated battery with a firearm, while Von was acquitted of all charges. Although Big Mike decided not to testify in court, the statement he did provide to police made them very suspicious of Von and labeled Mike a snitch in the gang. Big Mike happened to be the brother of another rapper from Chicago named Wooski. Wooski grew up in O-Block, but at some point started to hang out with their rivals in STL-EBT, which is an alliance that consists of two sets of GDs, named St. Lawrence and E-Block territory. The two blocks sit right next to each other and only a block away from O-Block, and because of this, they formed an alliance against O-Block and multiple other rival gangs decades ago. Wooski eventually had to move out of O-Block after he allegedly shot and killed a BD from O-Block when he was 12. After leaving O-Block, he moved into STL-EBT and quickly became close with fellow GD rappers, such as FBG Duck, Lil J, and Lil Jojo. Wooski and Von had a ruthless public feud against each other for years on Twitter. They went back and forth, mocking fallen gang members and taunting each other, asking who would die first. In October 2018, Wooski was attending a funeral for his friend Dusky DeMan and decided to step outside to smoke a cigarette. Upon leaving the church, he was met with a hail of Draco gunshots and was struck in the head. He was rushed to the hospital and into emergency surgery and eventually pulled through. Wooski is still alive today, but after being shot in the head, he faces many daily struggles and continues to work on his recovery. In 2018, after seeing the success of his friends like Lil Durk in the music industry, Von decided to give it a shot himself. He was trying to turn his life around for the better and was encouraged to do so by his friends. Durk signed him to his label, OTF, and he released his breakout single, Crazy Story, on December 6, 2018. With the backing of his friend Lil Durk, the track almost immediately blew up and put Von on the map. Having all the cameras on him was a hard adjustment for him to have to make at first, but he quickly got the hang of it with guidance from Durk. He continued to drop music throughout the next few years, continued to collaborate with his friend Lil Durk, and quickly continued to grow his fan base. In June of 2019, Von and Durk were both arrested in connection with a shooting in Atlanta. Prosecutors allege the two men robbed and shot a man outside a popular Atlanta drive-in on February 5, 2019. Both men were charged with being a felon in possession of a firearm and criminal intent to commit murder. Among other charges, though they were both able to post bail, Von for $250,000 and Durk for $300,000. But this only helped bring fame to his name, as getting locked up often does for so many artists, and his career began to see new heights. He was going on tour with Lil Durk and was finally making money and not living in the streets. Then, on November 6, 2020, when Von and his crew left the Opium nightclub, they headed to the Monaco Hookah Lounge in Atlanta. Since Von was a felon and he had a pending case with Lil Durk, he was not able to carry a firearm. At around 2:15 a.m., Von was tragically involved in an altercation with rapper Quando Rando and his crew outside of the hookah lounge. The two groups began to argue, and eventually shots were fired. Quando Rondo and Von got into a fist fight, and Quando Rondo's friend, Lul Tim, allegedly opened fire on Von, striking him multiple times. Chaos immediately ensued. Lul Tim was shot at by one of Von's friends, and two officers opened fire from two different locations. 6 men were shot during the entire altercation, and Von, along with 2 other men, tragically passed away as a result of their injuries. Thankfully, the entire ordeal was caught on surveillance camera, and Von's alleged killer, Lul Tim, was arrested for his murder by authorities. As quick as his career started, it ended, and fans were left behind with only his music and recordings. Despite his past, he was a very talented artist. He deserved a second chance to turn his life around, as most people should. His death was a tragedy in any context, but that it came just 1 week after the release of a new album, Welcome to O-Block. the title of which makes it all the more clearer how strongly Vaughn yearned to return home, to make amends with those that had wronged him and infuse his community with a strong, inspiring presence. That was already a banner year for Vaughn, and the release of O-Block was likely to be a celebratory cap on his ascent to rap's upper echelon. One of his biggest hits, Crazy Story, encapsulates everything that made him the next voice of Chicago rap. It's both witty and tragic, stuck between glorifying violence and lamenting the fact that it ever had to come to this. I grabbed my Glock, it'd been through a lot, but it still shoot like new. We at the top, yeah, we lost a lot, but that just how it go. King Von knew how quickly success could come, but more importantly, how conspiring forces could make it go away in an instant. However, the rapper also had his controversial side. Despite carefully insisting that his lyrics weren't a voracious account of gang violence, it is becoming increasingly clear that the Chicago rapper was, in fact, a shooter. As earlier mentioned, Vaughn was murdered in Atlanta in November 2020, but his legend remains widely talked about, both for its proximity to violence and for his wondrous lyrical gifts. It's a curious bundle of conflicts for a rapper to actually be a notorious criminal, rather than an artist who may happen to specialize in lyrical depictions of, or fantasies about, crime. Absurdly, Vaughn often tweeted, in slang, about violent events that he was either responsible for or directly knew about. At one point, after the murder of a gang member named Lil James, he counted out the names of the rival gang members that he or his gang had killed. He murdered a woman like an SVU character. He escaped the charges like Gotti. In fairness to Vaughn, saying that lightly, during one of the murders, he provided Chicago detectives with an alibi. For whatever reason, the detectives let him go. Whether that alibi was legit remains unclear. The scale of King Von's life is both niche and immensely large. The south side of Chicago, particularly Englewood, is one of the most famous neighborhoods in an iconic American city. It's renowned for its rap and violence. Kanye West had been talking about the murder rate in Chicago long before Trump started using it as a proxy for his relentless campaigns. Its violence is both local and notorious, widely discussed and weirdly kept under wraps, gleefully committed by its hardened residents, and fiercely protested against by its most committed and concerned citizens. In 2017, after Lil Durk helped Vaughn, his childhood friend, get settled for civilian life after a short jail sentence, Vaughn became a shockingly spectacular rapper. Durk correctly saw the raw potential in Vaughn. Vaughn was able to answer Durk's evaluation with a foundational lyricism and studious work ethic. Songs like War With Us and GTA spoke unsettling truths about a mentality he was fed and one that he incarnated. After Vaughn's murder, he was immediately canonized by LeBron James, an athlete widely known as an American hero. But Vaughn was also a gangster who spewed a heritage of violence. Those two facts are intertwined and together are tantalizing. You genuinely can't love Vaughn's music without knowing who he was. His death was a sad event. He was murdered after an altercation outside a hookah lounge at only 26 years old. He was thriving, personally and creatively. The jail had been good for him. Welcome to the O-Block was a nuanced affair. His production was more modern and soulful. The hooks were crisper. If the storytelling on his previous records was more complete, he was now becoming a mainstream star. His family was enjoying the fruits of his generational voice. The deafening gangsterism on Levin James, his prior album, was a jolt in the rap world. Other drill stars were more melodic, but he was perhaps the best pure rapper in his autobiographical purity and lyrical proficiency. Grandson, Vaughn's second posthumous album, came out in August 2023 with a picture of his son, a startlingly beautiful black boy, on the cover. It shows Vaughn as the intense rapper that he was, a ball of fire and a voice that whistles through your speakers with a feverish pace. The album is bogged down by the typical problems with posthumous work. These are obviously demos, and they could use some more intensity. But weed out some of the unfinished songs, and Vaughn's people have done a decent job with the production. Sometimes the album feels like Vaughn calling in from heaven, or possibly hell, to discuss his dreams, which are both profound and upsetting. "My past keep haunting me," he says in When I Die, and you want to believe that is true. If Vaughn was a murderer, then you hope that he begged for forgiveness, or that he would have ended up preaching to kids that another way of life was possible. Violence is a miserable cycle of mere despair and fright. It has been alleged that Vaughn transitioned to murder after watching his friend get shot in front of him. Hearing his bouncy flow on Real Oppie with G Herbo felt like the infamous Chris Farley skit from Saturday Night Live. I smiled and then felt the smile slowly wither away. Unfortunately, the path that he chose didn't last him that long. And that's it from us today until next time. Thank you for watching.